heard me talk about this quite a bit. You can either use situations like this to get bitter or get better. A lot of people always say it's one or the other. I personally think it's a happy medium. I think you at first need to feel that bitterness to kind of truly figure out how much you love it, how much you want it, and how much you truly care, and weigh that out versus how much you've already given of yourself. Because there's only so much that you can give before you completely lose all sense of yourself. Okay, so once you weigh that out and figure that out, then you can use that bitterness to get better. And then one day you're going to be so good, you're not bitter anymore because you have a completely different outlook. And that takes 5 minutes. All it takes is 5 minutes to commit yourself to a change that's going to better the rest of your life. 5 minutes. So how dedicated are you? How wanting are you? How determined are you? How motivated are you? 5 minutes. It takes 5 minutes to commit yourself to that change. And in 6 months from now, you can have an entirely different life, all because of that 5 minutes. To me, that is 5 minutes well spent. You deserve it. That's my opinion, though. I can't want it more than that person. That person has to want it. They have to breathe it, feel it, be it, embody it, see it, while also keeping their integrity and keeping their own sense of self. Because once you lose that, you have no idea who you become. And then you're not being the adult you needed as a child. And with this business being built and geared towards children, you kind of need to remember who you are deep down and why you fell in love with this business to begin with. I have not met a single person that said, oh yeah, brother, I got into wrestling because I hated it, brother. No, nobody says that. Nobody says that. Everybody got into it because they thought it was cool. They were like, it was something to try. I saw this random flyer about this show and I figured I'd give it a shot. Or, I absolutely loved it. I wanted to be just like this person. I saw it on TV. It was amazing. I dreamed of it and now I'm doing it. Okay, my whole entire career, since I was a fresh-faced 17-year-old, I have never once heard somebody say, I got into wrestling because I hated it. So with that being said, I think that more of us need to be proof that we can leave wrestling still loving it. Because there's so many stories talking about hating it. They lost their freedom. They lost their creativity and their passion. They felt like their wings were clipped, this, that, and the other. You can either allow that to happen, or you can fight for yourself in a way that opens up doors for more people. Because at the end of the day, I always say, if you are the first, it is your responsibility to ensure you are not the last. If it's a good opportunity, if it's something that's bad and should never happen, then you need to make sure that even though you know you're not the first, you better be the last. That's your responsibility, both sides of the spectrum. So for these recently released wrestlers, they need to commit themselves to wanting better, to do better, and achieve better. And it's okay if some of them want to go back to WWE. That door isn't closed. It's not closed, okay? It just all depends on what they choose to do with the time that they have now been given. Think of this like the gladiators, proving ground. Say 6 months from now, Mia Yim could be the biggest thing in wrestling since sliced bread because she is that good. I have wrestled with her. I actually really like her as a person. Mia Yim could be the biggest thing since sliced bread now that she is released from WWE. The same thing could be said for a lot of these stars. So imagine a world 6 months from now and Mia Yim's face is plastered on every social media post for wrestling, every poster. Everybody wants to work with her. Everybody wants to sign her. How awesome is that? If you think WWE won't come calling back, you've got another thing coming. Because nobody looks like Mia Yim. Mia Yim has a track record of excellence when given the right opportunities. And she is somebody that you can market and sell for a very specific several demographics. Which means, in business speak, that means money. Because you're going to get an ROI, which is a return on your investment. At the end of the day, wrestling is a business. WWE is a business. WWE is a publicly traded company. They have shareholders. Okay, there is a lot going on. It's a business. The more successful the business, the more opportunities for people like Mia Yim. Okay? We need to keep these things in mind. Being released is not the be-all, end-all. It's actually a great opportunity to show how tenacious you can be, to show how motivated you can be, and also to show how smart you can be. Somebody that can remarket themselves and come back bigger and better. For example, Matt Hardy. How many times has he reinvented himself with a successful gimmick? He is like the perfect example of somebody who is insanely smart, talented, and passionate. He knows how to reinvent himself and come back bigger and better. think for a minute, if he would have just stayed as Matt Hardy, one half of the Hardy Boys, and never done, Matt Hardy 2.0, Matt Hardy version 1, delete, and, Big Money Matt and all this stuff. If he would have just stayed as that original WWE character, you guys probably would not be talking about him today. You guys would probably be talking about him as a has-been, hasn't been for a very long time. But are people talking about Matt Hardy that way? Absolutely not. Why? Smarts, intelligence, understanding of how the business works, and the formula on how to stay relevant and how to disappear from the spotlight to come back and introduce something new, making yourself the fresh new shiny toy on the playground again, even though you've been in the business for X amount of years. Somebody else who I think has that ability, quite honestly, in my opinion, is Bray Wyatt. Okay, I've loved all of those gimmicks. I still feel, and so many people say this, that I would be a Great Sister Abigail character. That's a character I would totally sink my teeth into, or Lily the doll. I don't know. That is intelligence. Mia Yim has that ability. Okay, Karrion Kross, Scarlett Bordeaux, they have that ability. Okay, this is not the be-all end-all for these talents, but this is the proving ground. This is the training field, okay? What they do now is going to ultimately lead them to the direction they don't want to go in, or the direction they've always wanted to go in. Time will tell, but all it takes 5 minutes. 5 minutes to commit themselves to a change, using that bitterness or whatever that is to make them